Welcome to Depth of Field, an independent filmmaking podcast hosted by Dr. Mike White and Shelby Hagerdon, independent filmmakers and industry professionals. Episodes will touch on recent films, the state of the industry, the regional scene in Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota, the occasional gear discussion, and interviews. Stay up to date with our current episodes on Spotify and YouTube.
Hello and welcome to the August 4th, 2026 edition of Depth of Field. I am Dr. Mike White.
And I'm Shelby Hagerdon.
And on today's episode, we're going to go ahead and talk about how box office is back and about the fantastic revenues that are being seen at the movie theater right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're also going to talk just a little bit about the Odyssey criticism from Emily Wilson. Also an American film that is part of the Toronto Wavelengths series, which is coming up. We'll talk about that a little bit. And a little update on the Paramount Skydance merger, as well as some local news on the fallen giant situation that's going on in Omaha. We'll keep everybody abreast of that a little bit. So first off, I want to talk about box office being back. There's been a lot of talk on basically every single publication, whether it be Deadline, Hollywood Reporter, IndieWire, Variety, all of them about the great box office. And we haven't seen box office like this since before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is they said that audiences weren't going to the movie theater, especially millennial audiences weren't going to the movie theater.
Yeah.
So the younger generation kind of took the blame for that. However, we have found out that 82% of millennial audiences are going to the theater. And that means that's at least one theatrical film per year. And then many are averaging as many as 7 visits a year. So they went from not really going to going all the time. And this summer is definitely a sign of that.
Yeah. So the big breakthrough films this summer, which I'm excited about, were Project Hail Mary, Obsession, and The Odyssey, which all make sense to me, but also two are not franchises. I mean, the two are adaptations, right. Project Hail Mary and The Odyssey. Obsession, of course, is an original independent, but it's very exciting to see such, kind of original ideas and kind of, verging on art house, but in a consumable manner.
Yeah.
And I really like these films.
Well,
too.
and this is really kind of a middle finger to the naysayers in this case.
Yes.
The whole thing of like younger generations don't go to the movies and they're killing cinema.
They will go to the movies if you give them something that they have been asking for. And a lot of younger people have been asking for fewer franchises.
Right. And then that's the whole thing too. And people are burned out.
Yeah.
We don't know how many more superhero movies. I mean, there's a few critics that just don't even want to go to superhero movies anymore.
Mm-mm.
They don't want to do it.
Well, it's the same thing every time, basically.
Well, you get fatigued, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it was kind of like, in the 1950s, you had 40s too. You had Westerns for basically 20 years and people got tired.
Yep.
So I think with superhero movies, that's probably what's happening. There's some fatigue there. Not that they're going to go away completely. The Spider-Man movie is doing fantastic.
Yeah.
But they're also saying that it'll generate a lot of money foreign.
Yes.
And it's gonna do great. That's good and that's great. It's great for Sony. It's great for Disney. It's great for everybody involved.
A lot of that too comes from I think a lot of that comes from the cast as well, though, because especially with Tom Holland and Zendaya in there, I mean, they're married. There's a curiosity. I think they keep their lives pretty private, and people just kind of adore them as a couple. So it makes sense for people to be going to that film.
They're a Hollywood it couple,
definitely.
So I mean,
and we forgot to mention too, Backrooms was also another big film in there, which also original from.
But these numbers are giant.
Yeah, they're huge. So Project Hail Mary, we're at $684 million. Obsession, $475 million. Backrooms, $390, and The Odyssey at $911.
And The Odyssey is held strong.
Yes.
I mean, those numbers from week to week have been consistently good.
It'll break $1 billion.
Oh yeah, it'll easily.
But I mean, these are exciting, and also too, you've got the horror movie. Fans are covered in this. And I mean, Obsession is proving too that you can make something for a pretty small budget that
well,
can
and a
do
young
incredibly
director.
well. And you also, too, you have the epics in here, too, which I think are interesting because a lot of people, I think people are missing the epic in the more traditional sense as opposed to kind of superhero epic or like Transformers type epic. We're seeing that like in Project Hail Mary and the Odyssey, which are two very different films, kind of in their own way, both about essentially getting home. But I don't know. I'm excited to see kind of both spectrums here.
It's very classic hero's journey storyline stuff. So excellent. We did want to talk a little bit about the Odyssey, and I know it's unusual for us to talk about a film at least twice on the show, but we want to talk about it a little bit because Shelby and I've had multiple discussions about this.
And people keep asking our opinions on it.
Yeah, people keep asking our opinions on it too. And a lot of our friends are very torn in this too. And I think part of it is, for people who don't know, we're both academics. Shelby also has a degree in history as well too. So public history is near and dear to her heart and as well. And I teach film criticism, of course. So one of the things is that there were a few folks that were really critical of the Odyssey. One of them was Emily Wilson. Now, I want to talk about Emily Wilson for just a second. She is not a film critic.
No. She's a classic scholar. Now, I've been a fan of Emily Wilson's now for a little while. As an academic. She was one of the first women, and really kind of in a major published sense, the first woman to translate the Odyssey, which her translation was a really big inspiration for Nolan as he was writing it. And I will say, too, her translation is written with a fairly contemporary voice as well. But her criticism of the film is that the voice is too modern, but also too that there was some removal of several storylines. She wasn't happy with the inciting incidents as well, kind of shifting things about. And then also too some of the portrayals of women on screen too. She was not very happy about.
So why do we even care about Emily Wilson?
Okay.
Here is the thing. Emily Wilson's review of the film, which is a pretty scathing one.
Oh yeah.
Actually has reached the ear of all the film critics as well. And the film critics are quite erudite. A lot of them are like, listen, what is this form of criticism that we're looking at and stuff in this too. So there is the argument that this isn't really art. And please don't throw things at me. But I mean, one of the things is that if you were to have made this film like the way she would have wanted to be, primarily a cast of English actors, it would have period dialogue.
And it'd probably be a mini series. Well, because it's a very long time.
Or very Lawrence of Arabia type.
Yeah, picture. I mean, it could have been like a 6-hour-long movie.
Yeah, and the issue with that is that that's not a movie that makes $1 billion.
No.
I'm just going to be straight with you, because audiences are largely that they don't want to work that hard in the theater. So when you look at it, it's like modern language makes it easier, right? Storylines that are not really, really, complicated.
And storylines that fit a modern audience with themes that they're familiar with. And I think too, and
it's cast with tons of recognizable actors,
it's A-list,
whether they're great actors or not.
Yeah. And I share some of Wilson's criticisms in this. But my kind of general opinion is, and this is not really to go against Emily Wilson, and it's not exactly either like in like some great support of Nolan, because, I like Christopher Nolan films fine, but, he doesn't always have the strongest dialogue, which is just kind of a known fact. He's a very, very good storyteller. He's a great director, right?
He makes movies for mass consumption.
And we knew that going into it too.
Yeah, he's not David Lean.
No, but the other thing in this that I appreciate is Nolan is participating in a thousands-year-old tradition of telling the Odyssey. That is what this is. It is a story that is to be told.
That's his interpretation.
And it is his interpretation of the story, just as Homer is interpreting a collection of stories, because it's not as if, I created this entire epic. No, you're stealing from different pieces, different stories that, people have heard and been told over time. this is just Nolan's interpretation of the story and how he's delivering it to a modern audience.
Right.
When he is interpreting some of those themes, his themes are a direct reflection of the culture of today. When people go back, in 100 years from now and they look at this film, they're going to say, oh, this is why Nolan interpreted the film in this way. If they want to say, okay, well, what differs, right, in if we want to get into the the storytelling aspect, if we say, okay, well, it's different because they put a lot of the emphasis on the horse and the Trojan horse, and that's why. Well, okay, maybe Nolan is looking at this thematically from a modern war sense, drone warfare. You can kind of see some direct correlations to our modern
the
culture. The
inciting incident in there is like what turns the gods against him. In the Odyssey, it's the killing of the Cyclops, right?
Yeah.
And the whole thing where he goes, I am Odysseus, right? And kills the Cyclops. And it's his vanity that does it. That's not that.
We don't really make him vain in this.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. Like that's the thing in that.
And that's okay. But also, too, modern audiences are vain. We live in a time of, social media and constantly looking at our faces. We're always on screen. We're projecting ourselves constantly.
They changed it from the killing of the Cyclops as the inciting incident as the sacking of Troy.
Yes.
So he has PTSD, basically, which is not what...
But they place it on, the people of the sea, or the people from the sea who came in and, tore up Troy. But I actually really like that, because I do think that it showcases a lot of like what we're currently thinking about as a culture when, we're looking at warfare, when we're talking to you about, injustice and just decency.
There is a sector of the criticism community, film comment especially, and film comment, like I'd mentioned, is very erudite. It is a scholarly type thing. And Devika say it for me, Gitajish, who is one of the editors, and Clinton Krutt, who is the co-editor, they were pretty brutal on the film because they wanted this a film that was probably a lot more like a Shakespeare play than probably what we got.
I would have loved that. You would have loved that.
I would have loved it. As a scholar, I would have loved it, and I would have thought it was genius.
But would a more general audience love that?
Would the general public go to it? Absolutely not.
No. And we can't have, the call for people, people need to be going to the theaters, and then get them there with a highbrow cinema.
Right.
You can't do that.
A sophomore in high school would go to this and really enjoy it.
Yes. And the great thing is with this film, it's getting people interested in classic literature. Yeah. Right. In a way that, if they would have presented it in a different way, it wouldn't have had this mass appeal. Emily Wilson has sold a lot of copies because of this. She's made a tremendous amount of money on this.
At the end of the day, you have to remember that this is a summer blockbuster. Yes. No one would have given him $200 million to make a Shakespeare-like movie.
No.
Because it wouldn't have the return on investment.
No.
And in a case like this one, it's like, you give a little to get a little,
yes.
Right? So we get a good film,
yeah,
that gets people. It's visually stimulating. Yeah, the dialogue's weak at times, but for the most part, it's entertaining and it's great and it serves its purpose. And the amount of other independent films that will be birthed out of the money that's generated from this is fantastic, and that's what we need to take a look at.
And it engages audiences, and I think maybe a more, I don't know, not even maybe in a different way that some other epics might, right? It's the same thing like Project Hail Mary is going to work with audiences in a different way that the Odyssey is, both in very valid and helpful ways too. It pushes them in different directions. People are going to study, Project Hail Mary. They're looking into the science of this. They're going to read this book. They're getting into science fiction again, which is awesome. And the Odyssey is engaging people in classic literature and classic storytelling, both of which are great.
God
right?
forbid people read anything.
And it's getting people to read. I think that I think that it's a net positive overall.
I do too.
And I agree with Wilson's commentary on specifically the roles for women in the film. They're not very developed.
And there's no sex.
And she got on about like the fact that there's no sex, but
all
also
of the three critics we just mentioned, all of them are like, there's so much more sex in this than, and it's very sexless. But also,
it doesn't work for a big...
Can you bring your sixth grader?
No. But also, too, we have a growing audience that are saying we don't want sex in films because they're not interested in it. So how exactly do you sell this,
Right. It is a movie made for the largest audience possible to generate as much money as possible.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
It's cast in that way. It's a summer blockbuster. It's what you would expect. It's what we call a tentpole movie. It holds up the industry. We know that. And I think people can't expect it to be more than what it is.
Yes.
And I think that's the case. And for it to be this very Shakespeare-like picture, which is what that particular group of critics would like, is wonderful, but it won't make $1 billion.
No. It's...
And that's the case. And at the end of the day, this is also an industry too. And I know that that sounds crazy coming from a film professor, but it is true that we do have to do that.
But that opinion, though, I think is what kind of starts to differentiate industry opinion and industry criticism versus academic criticism.
Well, yeah, of course.
Is when you start to throw in the business, and that's okay.
It's a movie versus a film.
Yes.
Right? So it's the difference.
And it's going to have good staying power. I think people are going to enjoy this film for a long time.
Oh, it's going to be great. Yeah, it's going to be great. And he's had other pictures I like too.
And again, like, this is not a shot at Emily Wilson. No. I'm still a very big fan of hers.
That's great.
I think she's a great writer and a great scholar.
I think after she wrote that, though, too, I heard an interview with her after, and she's kind of like, that was probably a little hard.
Maybe.
But
I mean, it's pretty scathing if you haven't read it.
It is, but she also wants to sell books, and she's
she is selling books out of this.
That's an industry too, man.
I know, and I'm very happy she's selling copies, because that means people are reading a good interpretation of the story.
Yes. So I want to talk about Toronto Wavelengths.
Yes, moving forward
really quick. Toronto Wavelength on Tuesday, they went ahead and announced the list. And if you don't know about, there's the Toronto International Film Festival, TIFF, which is a fantastic, fantastic film festival. Probably the premier Canadian film festival. Mm-hmm. And it's a launching point for a lot of films. And they have something called Toronto Wavelengths, which is kind of an offshoot of that festival, which is an avant-garde festival. And it's got experimental films and things like that in there as well. And one of the pictures that was chosen, there was only one really American film in there, which is a film called Once Upon a Time in Harlem. And this is a film by William Greaves and David Greaves, okay? This picture actually premiered back in 2026 during Sundance. So the most recent Sundance it premiered. And it got bought by Neon at that time.
But was shot in 1972.
Yeah.
Because if you're familiar with William Greaves, he's passed away quite a bit about a decade ago.
So it's a posthumous film.
Yes, but was completed by his son,
David. So what happened was David actually took some footage, and the people who were involved in what was known as the Harlem Renaissance were still alive in 1971. They got them all in one room, and they did, I don't know if you would call it like an interview, but it was more of them reminiscing and critiquing and laughing and
discussing the current culture,
and the state,
their place within it.
Yeah, their place within history, their place within Black culture, the evolution of Black culture. And it was, fortunately, when it was shot originally, it was shot on 16 millimeter, and then it was restored digitally and then edited now by David. And it's crazy. It may, and I don't quite know, would this be a documentary? I'm not quite sure. But it's a really cool format, and it's going to be big. And I think also I'm really, really thrilled Neon picked this up.
Yes.
And did some stuff with it. Neon's got really good purchasing right now,
Neon's
making a lot of good decisions.
The king right now.
Yeah, but you know, part of that was A24 about a year and a half ago lost their best buyer. And
Neon too is doing a very good job of kind of having they're differentiating their palette, I think, too.
Yeah.
It's a good diverse palette, and they're looking at things like this, but then they're also picking up some other
Yeah.
like maybe more traditional pieces as well, as opposed to some more
and
like
things have
experimental
changed.
documentary.
And things have changed. I mean, we
Yes.
went through this period, especially during COVID, where people were like, we had the A24 bros. It's like, I watch everything by A24. It's
Yes.
like it's a curated catalog. It's not a curated catalog. They're like anybody else. You just had buyers that would say, okay, what fits in what we're trying to do, and then what can we sell?
I will say,
and then their primary buyer, the one that everybody liked, left.
Yeah.
So they're different. So,
and I think they do right now have like a curated catalog, but it's curated towards what the fans are looking for. It's interesting because they started saying, the A24 vibes, but at the time when they started saying that, A24 didn't have a specific vibe. It was just independent.
It was independence.
Because right now it's the question of would they even approach something like Lady Bird or 20th Century Women? Does that even fit the vibe?
It was such a weird time too, because people are like, I'm going to watch every film by this motion picture company, which is bizarre because it's like just it's weird. Studio. It's just a distributor.
Yeah.
It's like. And then you try to explain to somebody, it's like, they don't have studios. Yes, they do. It's like, oh, good God. It's like.
And of course, they're branching out more.
Well,
but
yeah, they pre-filmed and stuff too.
Yeah.
It's just weird. It's like people who don't understand the business, I guess, not to be a jerk, but you know what I mean?
I do. I'm excited, though, to see kind of how Neon continues to.
And
I'm very happy.
It's been one film right after. It's like after they bought Titan that time, it just went crazy.
They've done a great job.
Yeah, really good. Awesome. Right. Look for that picture.
Yes, I'm excited about it.
The picture's called Once Upon a Time in Harlem by David Greaves.
And it did premiere at the 2026 Sundance.
It did. Yeah, it did.
Hopefully it'll be streaming.
Well, after this TIFF thing, it probably will go to streaming.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it'll be very cool.
So it's great.
All right.
So where is the Paramount Skydance merger? Okay, so let's talk about that. David Ellison, who is the son of the 6th richest man in the world, who is in the media industry, is trying to get, still working out, trying to get the Paramount merger, Paramount Skydance merger to happen.
Yeah.
Now it's gotten to a point with the antitrust where they're very concerned about CNN because they're saying that, listen, he's going to take CNN and make it conservative. CBS is already become very right-leaning.
Yep.
And they're afraid that there won't be any room for a dissenting opinion because we only know democracy works if you have conservative media and liberal media.
Mm-hmm.
And things in between.
And we prefer if it's not like that.
We prefer that it's not. Everything be middle of the road.
Everything's AP News.
Fox News is not going anywhere. And they are very, very conservative media. And then, of course, CNN is very left-leaning. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they're very concerned that it probably justifiably, because you can't just have all the media be one-sided.
Especially in a traditional media sense.
So David Ellison was quoted recently. Do you want to read the quote?
Yeah. David Ellison wrote, I can't give anyone a view into my heart and mind, but I can share this. I have regularly voted for candidates of both parties. I hold some views that would be called conservative and others that would be called liberal, just like most Americans. And when it comes to our news operations, I do not aspire to lead these companies to bend their newsrooms to my views. I believe that news should be based on facts and truth.
So right now, this is nowhere near done. They're going to be muddling through this for quite a while. But the thing is, this is very difficult on the two companies because how do you create a strategy when you're up in the air? And it does affect the media landscape a lot.
Yes. And especially with midterms coming up too. I mean, obviously there's concerns about how people are getting their news and their media.
Sure.
During that time.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it will be interesting to see how that shakes out. This may be completely out of date by the time we get this to air because it's like every 2 days there's a new thing on it. If you want to keep up on that, I'd say Variety. Variety is probably the best place. They've been very, very good. about it. And they actually have a single correspondent that's actually, this is their full-time gig, is working on this. And I can't remember their name, but they're handling it right now as well. Let's go to some local really quick. I want to talk a little bit about an article that was in the Nebraska Examiner this week or last week, I think it was, about Fallen Giant Films. And for those of you who don't know, this is the company owned by Randy Goodwin. They received a $5 million economic development grant from the state of Nebraska.
We did discuss this a few episodes ago.
We did. The article was a very sympathetic article, we felt, toward Randy Goodwin. Very much in the thing of like, listen, they only gave him $3.5 million. They were holding out on it. Because of that, he can't finish any of the projects. And he had this big dream for Nebraska and all of these things. And it was very much like, let him have the rest of the money to go ahead and do this.
Does not go so much into the specifics of the accounting, and it's a little bit more of a human interest article than it is fully reporting on the situation.
Yes. And one of the things I think that's in there too, and again, speaking completely, based on what we do now, is that the accounting was not all there. And you've got $3.5 million that were spent with some pretty loose accounting. And for Shelby and I, we work in grants as well and stuff too. We track every cent and report on every cent. I mean, literally, write a check, take a picture of it. The check is returned, take a picture of it, send it in. Every single cent is accounted for. And that's how it's done. There's a few things in there. Probably some of the spending is maybe a little questionable.
And you have to be very careful with that stuff when it comes to grants, because there are certain expectations.
Well, they've got really expensive rental property. It looks like it's about $120,000 a year in rental property. Which is a lot. And there were some things, and I actually went back and looked at a prior article when the $5 million was originally granted. And there were some things where like, we're going to have all these educational spaces and we're going to offer all these classes. And there were a lot of things, and maybe it's because that remaining money wasn't dispersed. There were a lot of things that were kind of promised that I haven't heard about. And I feel like my ear is to the ground a lot, because I mean, I know you and I are super active in all of the film scenes.
Especially in an educational
space.
Well,
we would at least know, what's going on. So, I mean, I think because of that, one of the things that we're looking at is that it is, I think, even though the article doesn't really touch much on the accounting aspect of this and why the money hasn't been released. And then the article basically closes as, well, I've kind of given up on trying to do anything good for Nebraska, so I'm moving away to Oklahoma. And it's kind of
where there's additional tax incentives and
and there's some things there as well. It will be very interesting to see how the legality of this shakes out as it goes through. And maybe, who knows, maybe it is a situation of, if he had that additional $1.5 million, would he have been able to do all of the things that were promised initially?
But with $3.5 million, it's pretty significant portion.
That's a pretty significant portion of money. And it is kind of one of those things. So it is something I think the entire film community should be concerned about.
Yes.
Because it does affect things like the filmmaker relationship with the state government.
Yes.
Especially when we really want to bring industry into our state.
Because there's the kind of the excuse that I keep hearing right now is, well, it's not exactly a film grant. It doesn't matter that this isn't exactly a film grant. It was to a filmmaker, and it's because we are a state without, as many opportunities as we probably should have for filmmakers. This is going to put a specific taste in their mouth, and I don't want it to ruin opportunities for future filmmakers.
Only takes one bad situation. For people who are been around a long time, remember, Iowa had a film tax incentive that was abused.
And we have heard about it in other states.
I've heard
for years.
We'll travel. We'll be 5-6 states away. People will bring it up, and say, that's the cautionary tale.
They will hear us and we'll just say we're from Iowa and they'll say,
They'll bring it up.
the state where this happened.
I literally was having
Okay.
coffee with a filmmaker I just met who brought it up to me
Yeah.
when I was in Arkansas City, Kansas.
Yes.
Literally. I mean, that's clear down by the Oklahoma border. And they were like, that's the cautionary tale.
Yeah.
So these things, they do impact our states for years and years.
They matter.
Yeah.
And filmmakers should be aware of those things.
And if it does end up, and right now it's way too early to tell. But if it was a situation where they say, oh, there was financial abuse there, it can affect film community for a long time. So it is one of those things that we need to keep an eye on, I think.
Stay up to date on it, I think.
Yeah.
Ear to the ground. And
right. And we're not taking a particular position in this.
I care mostly about what happens to the community at large,
absolutely.
as opposed to just like this specific case. I just want to know how it's going to affect everybody in the end.
Right. And again, of course, we don't have all the details, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, we would love to
And
know.
I'm sure there will be more things that come out. So.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Depth of Field. We did have an interview plan, but we had a cancellation at the last second. So you're just going to have to deal with us rambling for this week. But we'll see you in a couple of weeks with another show and definitely a guest. So thank you so much for tuning in, and see you next week. Until next time, I'm Mike White, and Shelby Hagerdon is not available for this closing segment. But we will see you next time. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to Depth of Field, and check us out on YouTube and Spotify, where we post new episodes every 2 weeks.